Hi everyone. I'm just going to out myself because I was like, I'm not going to do a video today because I'm having a messy hair, don't care day. But I thought it is about showing up authentically. So here I am. I've been talking a lot about survival mode with people. I've been working with a lot of folks that have made some really great changes, built some really great awareness, and they're still feeling like a little bit stuck. And we've identified it's because their system has not come out of survival mode just yet. So survival mode stays with us beyond a traumatic experience, but it's oftentimes triggered by additional traumatic experiences, high levels of stress, unpredictability, constant states of change. So even when people are overworking or isolated, what happens is we go into a state of arousal or shutdown, and basically it feels like our fight or flight modes are always activated. So we do get stuck in survival mode, and it takes work to unstick ourselves. So I thought I would talk a little bit today about how to start to get out of survival mode. And it really does start with a foundational practice of self-care. So it starts with the basics of having a proper diet, proper rest for whatever your body needs and craves, as well as a good hygiene routine. So those are sort of the basics of self-care. But we have to go a little bit beyond that to get out of survival mode. And it is about exercising, being creative, and having some coping strategies to support us. Breathing is another really important part, which I'll talk about in a moment. The next thing that we work towards with our practice of self-care is starting to acknowledge your emotions. So if you are not a person that is comfortable talking about emotions, expressing emotions, because, hey, we don't learn this oftentimes growing up, this is where it can be helpful to work with a supportive person, a therapist, a group, your community, things like that. So we need to be able to acknowledge our emotions and, one, recognize that you are in survival mode, if that is applicable to you. The next phases that we work with is beginning to tolerate certain emotions, not distract, not avoid them, but start to tolerate them and embrace them as they come. And then to get out of survival mode, it is about practicing self-compassion and forgiveness. And that is a really difficult one for some folks. It can be for myself included. Forgiveness is a practice. So I think it's a really great idea to start to forgive ourselves for the unhealthy habits that we've picked up while in survival mode, which I'll talk about in a moment. Another part of survival mode is learning how to ask for help. So most often I ask folks how it feels to help someone, and usually they say it feels good. Like it lights them up, it makes them feel connected. So I always ask those who have a difficult time in asking for help to consider that when we don't ask for help, we're taking away someone else's joy or connection of connecting with us. So when you're stuck in survival mode, it's imperative that you learn to ask for help when you need it. And yes, I'm talking about therapy, counseling, things like that, but it's beyond that. When's the last time you asked a friend or a loved one to watch your children or your animals overnight or for a weekend because you just need time for yourself? These things can help you to ground and come out of survival mode. So take someone up on an offer to support, to give you some time on your own. Like really start to consider what would be helpful for you. And I want to challenge you to ask. Or it is about seeking support from others. Maybe you even have a friend that's in therapy and you can build a stronger alliance with them to learn, like, how are you coping with things? And then you can build some of your own coping mechanisms as well. I also want to talk about the practice of breathing. So, breathing is the best way to start to re regulate our systems. I honestly believe we consciously have to be focusing on our breath several times a day. So, think about some 2 to 3 minute activities, set a reminder on your phone, do them in the morning, at night, over your lunch break. But breathing is really important, and breathing from your belly instead of your chest. So when we take those really deep breaths from our belly, this activates the parasympathetic nervous system, and this signals relax and detox. So that's why we need to breathe from there and not our chest, which can actually heighten our hyperarousal sometimes. Some other really brief tips for survival mode is to create a routine. Normal and boring are okay. Welcome them. If you've been through traumatic experiences, if you struggle with stress, normal and boring are okay. So develop a routine so your system starts to learn, like, hey, day after day, I'm maybe not worrying as much as I once was. Focus on very small goals that are specific for you and likely have a timeline mile marker, and try to limit yourself from your stressors. So I oftentimes encourage folks to look at taking 2 weeks off of a problematic person, relationship, place that they go to, an item like a vape or, a phone. Like, try to take 2 weeks off of specific apps or devices entirely if possible. You may go through a little bit of withdrawal, which will last, 3 to 7, 8 days, depending on how long you've been engaging with this behavior. So plan for that, but know once you get through that initial bit of discomfort, there will be deeper clarity. You may feel relief and you may feel a lot lighter. So try to take a 2-week break from something that you absolutely need to. Lastly, as I mentioned earlier, it is so important to acknowledge that we pick up these habits in order to cope, right? So forgive yourself for emotionally eating. And we can forgive by recognizing, like, thank you, emotional eating, for building a shield or warming my system or filling a void for the time that you did. But I no longer need you anymore, and I'd like to let go. And we can do this with our tech. You can do this with gambling, with substance use, because again, they've served a purpose at a specific time that's maybe gotten away from you. So forgive yourself for the unhealthy habits, and maybe this is a time to start to focus on coming out of survival mode. That's all for now.